We are cutting into your programming here on WFAA Plus as we follow two major stories across the country and here in North Texas. On one side of your screen there, you are taking a live look at Washington, D.C., where people are participating in the No Kings rally. There are more than 2,500 of these events happening across the country today, and more than a dozen right here in North Texas. We're going to bring you coverage of that. And on the other side of your screen there, we are taking a live look out at North Texas, where we are expecting some storms in the next few hours or so. We're going to keep our eyes on both of those stories today, but we're going to start with our coverage of those protests that we talked about. Thank you for being with us. I'm Morgan Young. We have crews that are covering this across our area, starting in Collin County in Frisco, where protesters started about 9 o'clock this morning. We had crews there. You can see folks lining the streets there, waving flags saying No Kings on them. There was a really big showing here in Frisco. We're actually going to get to our reporter who talked with some of those folks in just a minute or so, but you can just see here people lining the streets, waving American flags, having signs, and really trying to send their message here. And I want you to listen to what one person who was there today said about who was out there and why.
This is not just Democrats. It is Democrats, independents, Republicans, non-voters that we hope to turn into voters. This is not a Democrat organization. It's not an organization. It's a collective grassroots people that are just all kinds of people.
Was out there in Frisco this morning. I know she's in the process of getting to another location, but she's joining us by phone now. Natalie, good morning. I wanted to hear from you. I know we spoke earlier. You said that you were surprised by the number of people who showed up in Frisco this morning.
I was, Morgan, and to be frank with you, I think everyone I spoke with was a little surprised, but pleasantly so as well. Most of the people I talked to, they were Democrats or independents. I did speak to some Republicans. They described themselves as blue or purple dots in a predominantly red county and state, for that matter, and really wanted to hone in the message that this was not, something that was, they're not getting paid like some, senators, as recently as yesterday, Senator Ted Cruz claiming that No Kings protesters were paid to be on the streets, including here in Frisco. They are not paid. They're here to really share their message of wanting a free and fair democracy, and many of them not feeling like that is what they are getting right now. Like I mentioned, I spoke to Democrats, I spoke to Republicans. Over the last 2 hours, I spoke to independents, to Jews, to Arabs. I spoke to the children of people who fought in World War I and World War II. I spoke to veterans, preachers, church groups, and I was surprised to see that even in the last 30 minutes of what was planned for just a 2-hour rally in Frisco along Stonebrook and Main Street, it nearly doubled in size. The way I lost cell phone service in moments was really kind of startling. Everyone was just together in camaraderie in a very peaceful protest. I had a chance to speak with a couple of Frisco police officers who were patrolling the area. They had units in this big retail area along the streets where the protest was happening, some who were on foot, going along the sidewalk, making sure everyone was okay. They also called this peaceful. I looked for counter-protesters, as we normally do in our fair coverage here on WFAA, and I learned that the counter-protesters did not receive a permit in time to be on the same and be in the same area as the No Kings protest in Frisco. This is a lot more of what you'll hear from our side of things in Collin County in our coverage later tonight on WFAA. But we certainly got to talk to a lot of people who, again, were sharing a lot of the same message of just wanting a free and fair democracy and not feeling like they are getting that. And it was quite peaceful per just what we were seeing and by Frisco Police Department.
All right, Natalie, thank you so much. And I know Natalie is moving to a different part of Collin County to continue our coverage for us. We do want to check in a different part of the Metroplex. Our Luke Clary was actually in Arlington this morning, where he saw a similar showing of folks coming out to have their voices heard. Let's check in with
anybody passing through downtown Arlington today has to get through this gauntlet of protesters. There are several hundred people here gathered for the No Kings protest with a wide variety of signs. Some of their messages very stark and some of them rather humorous. I'll tell you that the mood here has been pretty light, a lot of smiles, almost celebratory as cars pass by and people honk their horns in support of these messages. But speaking with the protesters here today, many of them say that their message is serious. Okay, and then a tag.
All right, that was Clary for us in Arlington. You know, we want to take a picture, give you a picture of what this looks like across the country. Here's a look in New York City where you can see crowds there really just shoulder to shoulder for rallies there. We're seeing scenes like this across the country. And if you're not familiar with what this is, you know, this is a nationwide rally and protest, like I said, more than 2,500 events across the country. And organizers say that this is really a show of pushing back against the Trump administration and some of the actions that administration has taken. We've seen events like this before. Back in June, we saw the first round of No Kings rallies. So this is the second iteration of these events. And we're going to continue our coverage of this across the country. And of course, right here in North Texas, as more of those protests are scheduled throughout the day. We do want to check in on our other big story here, and that is our weather. Cassie is here taking a look at our forecast for the day.
Hi there, Morgan. Yeah, you know, it is a WFA weather alert day, and we already have some showers moving into parts of the Metroplex. But we think that if there is going to be any threat for stronger storms, maybe low-end severe storms, we're thinking between noon and 4 o'clock this afternoon. So the impact would be gusty winds, some small hail, heavy rain, and a little bit of lightning. So what you need to do as we go throughout the day today is just make sure you stay updated with the latest forecast, because things always change. Have a way to receive any warnings that could potentially come out, and the best way to do that is by downloading. Well, obviously you already have the WFA app to your TV, but just make sure your friends and family also have that, because we're going to continue to do updates as necessary this afternoon weather-wise. Today, again, that severe weather outlook, Dallas and Fort Worth, we're in that marginal risk of seeing any severe storm. So we're going to be on the lowest threat of seeing that. But east of the Metroplex, well, the atmosphere is going to be a little bit more unstable today. So that is where you find that slight risk of the quarter-size hail, wind gusts of 60 miles an hour. So still a pretty low threat. Right now, this is our WFA Studios Dallas camera, and we do have a lot of cloud cover. It's certainly a little bit darker than earlier this morning, so it looks a little ominous because the rain is getting closer. In fact, some of the Metroplex are already starting to see at least a few isolated showers, but the good news is everything right now pretty calm. We don't have any severe weather. In fact, the lightning has come down quite a bit from earlier this morning. The strongest part of these storms right now, they're going to be in between Gainesville and Sherman. And again, not severe by any means. We have some heavy rain on the west sides of Denton. Everything is moving off to the east and northeast. We also have some showers around Decatur, some thunderstorms just southwest of Jacksboro. You can see some thunderstorms, some stronger storms on the west sides of Mineral Wells. That's going to be moving off to the east northeast. So looking at Fort Worth, you've had a couple of showers moving through DFW, a couple of very light isolated rain showers, but that will increase here later today. So downtown Dallas, it looks like the moisture is at least starting to increase. Wouldn't be surprised if we have a few sprinkles out there at this point, but that's it for now. Eventually, the rain will be increasing from west to east across the Metroplex, but the strongest part of the storms right now, it's going to be in between Breckenridge and Mineral Wells. These are not severe. These are just good old thunderstorms. So as we go throughout the afternoon, yes, those storms continue to make their way off to the east, but again, that severe threat pretty low. At noon today, that is when it looks like the Dallas Metroplex will have the highest chance of seeing storms, and that's going to continue on and off this afternoon. By about 4 o'clock, it looks like the southeast part of the Metroplex will see the strongest part of the storms, and then after that, the Metroplex looks dry, but some of our far eastern counties will still be seeing that rain. And then eventually overnight tonight, the cold front moves in. It looks like this cold front's going to move in probably around midnight or so. And then tomorrow looks much nicer. We're expecting lots of sunshine with highs in the 70s, but starting out tomorrow morning in the 50s. Morgan, back to you.
All right, Cassie, thank you so much. And we are going to keep an eye on both our forecasts and, of course, these No Kings rallies that we're seeing across our area. And we'll bring you another update around 11:30. We are cutting into programming here on WFAA Plus, bringing you an update on two big stories we're covering here in North Texas. They're on one side of your screen. You're looking at a live look in Plano, where many have gathered for a No Kings protest there. And on the other side of your screen, we're taking a look out at the UNT campus because we are monitoring storms in our area throughout the afternoon. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm Morgan Young, and I'm joined by senior crime and justice reporter Rebecca Lopez. We are covering No Kings protest today here in North Texas, and we were here back in June for the first round of these.
Yes, I was out there at the Dallas one, and I was just amazed at how large it got. I think at the beginning, they were only estimating about 3,000, and I would say there were 15,000 people out there. It was very large.
And I remember, just seeing those crowds. It's still early today. We know that a couple of the communities in our area have started to have their protests, and we're starting to see those big numbers already. So we do want to check in with Natalie Haddad, who was at that scene in Plano that you were just looking at. Natalie, we've already talked this morning, large crowds, larger than expected.
Yes, I was actually talking to the Collin County Democratic Party over the last few days. They had numbers around 800 to be RSVP'd here, and of course people will show up. They are predicting that about 3,000 people are here right now at the corner of Parker and Preston in Plano. Just take a look across the street. People have started to get some space over there to protest, but we're going to walk down over here, John Mark. We're going to walk down this way to show you what the crowds really look like. Now, we just spent some time talking to a couple of protesters who are just much like what we saw in Frisco, are just looking to spread the message that they are looking for a free and fair democracy and don't feel like that's what they are getting. A lot of creative signs out here trying to send that message. We have seen a couple of counter protesters. Now, it's our understanding that a legitimate counter protest was not given a permit in time to be here, just like in Frisco, but we have seen a couple of people roaming the sidewalks with Trump signs trying to, again, counter protest. For the most part here, from what we can see, we just arrived, but what we can see is that this is very peaceful. Everyone is having a peaceful conversation, talking to us about what we have seen in other protests around Collin County. And here, I'm going to make our way around here where maybe you can hear some of their chants. Now we're going to be careful showing you what some of these protest signs say, as some of them do have some explicit words on them. Can't even talk today. They have cuss words, you guys, so we're just going to try and be careful about what we are seeing here. Again, we're predicting about 3,000 people here from the Collin County Democratic Party. They are the ones hosting this particular No Kings protest over in Frisco that was independently hosted. Some of what we have heard from protesters so far is that they want to share that they are not being paid to be here. Again, this was independently put on by the people of Plano. Another thing that we have been told is that there is a mixed bag of party affiliations here. We've talked to people who are Democrats, talked to people who are Republicans, but not necessarily proud of their party right now. We have talked to Jews, we've talked to Arabs, we have talked to the children of war veterans, we have talked to veterans, we've talked to preachers, to church groups, and everyone here, again, just sharing the same peaceful message of wanting a fair and free democracy and just not feeling like that is what they're getting right now, Morgan.
And Natalie, before we let you go, Rebecca actually has a question for you about the security situation.
Yeah, Natalie, what are you seeing security-wise, and how are they keeping the protesters apart? Because I know at times they have to try to extradite people out of there.
Sure. What I'm seeing right now, and we just arrived in Plano, I should say, I want to preface that because we are still getting a lay of the land here. We have seen a couple of officers patrolling the area, going up and down the sidewalk. We just had a couple of counter protesters pass us, and we see some nearby officers keeping an eye on that, making sure that everything stays peaceful, nothing rowdy from what we can see here on the sidewalk. It's very similar to what we saw in Frisco too. See a couple of patrol units over by the Wells Fargo Bank, a lot of retail businesses here where they are parked beside. I apologize if you can't hear us. If we can actually shift it to the street here on Preston and Parker, just getting a lot of support from people honking. And again, Rebecca, to your question again, officers are really on standby. I can see a couple standing over by the Bank of America across the street. I don't think you can see that on your screen right now, but they're standing away, allowing people to have their peaceful protest, to exercise their First Amendment, and going up and down the sidewalk. But it is not extreme. There are not, I wouldn't say there are huge amounts of officers here because largely in part, I believe they know that this is peaceful so far.
Thank you so much, Natalie. I really appreciate you answering that question. And Morgan, you know, one of the things that, at least in Dallas, that they try to do is not show force. They do have their crime response teams ready. Trust me, they've got people ready to go. But what you don't want to do is see people or see officers in riot gear. The philosophy of the Dallas Police Department and many of the surrounding areas has always been, if you look like you're showing force, then people are going to react to that. And that's when you start getting into trouble. So typically what you'll see is you will not see a lot of officers in riot gear or things like that unless something happens and they need to, you know, be sent in.
And what we know, and I know something we talked about a lot last time, and we heard organizers who had multiple calls this week leading up said that the goal, and Natalie said that too, was for this to remain uneventful in that space. You know, wanting it to remain peaceful. Some of the words they use were joyful and disciplined. They want people to exercise their right, but certainly don't want any of those incidents either.
Absolutely. And in Dallas, they are planning to march through the streets, and that's typically when it can get a little, you know, more complicated, but the Dallas Police Department knows the route. They know exactly where the people are going, so they can keep everyone safe.
We know that Dallas demonstration is scheduled for noon, is that correct? And we just heard, you know, Natalie's in Plano, but she started her day actually in Frisco and was kind of referencing what she saw there. Here's some video of that demonstration in Frisco, and one of the things that she said to us is that, very similar to Plano, a larger turnout than she was expecting. She was surprised by how many people showed up, and even as she was leaving in the last hour of that protest, it was scheduled from 9 to 11. She said the crowds were actually doubling. And you can just see people out there, different ages, different signs, and kind of similar to what we saw in Plano. And she spoke to some people about why they were out there, who was out there, and what their message is.
This is not just Democrats. It is Democrats, independents, Republicans, non-voters that we hope to turn into voters. This is not a Democrat organization. It's not an organization. It's a collective grassroots people that are just all kinds of people.
And, you know, we have more coverage around the area, but I do think it's important for us to talk about maybe someone who's joining us or hasn't heard a lot about these, what the purpose of these protests are. And I know we talked about that we had seen the first round of them in June, but the message that the protesters have today. Yeah,
and the message is that they are not happy with the president's policies and what is happening. And obviously now you have the government shut down. So when I was out there back in June, you saw people that had never even protested before that were out there, people that said, you know, I want to be able to have health care. I'm angry about LGBTQ rights. I'm angry about immigration. It is just a lot of people from a lot of different places and walks of life that are out there. And they are basically speaking out against President Trump and his administration.
And you know, when we talk about the issues, I know at that point you spoke to people, you named some of those issues. You know, a lot of people were really frustrated with immigration enforcement. And what's different or added, if you say this time around, you mentioned the government shutdown. I know there's been a lot of conversation about the deployment of the National Guard to different cities throughout the country that people have a lot of opinions about. So we see these issues added kind of to what we've been talking about.
And I think people are also feeling a little bit of frustration about the economy and what they're paying at the grocery store and what they're seeing when they go to check out. So there's just a lot of frustration that I heard when I was out there, and even more so now looking now a few months later, there are even more issues that I think that people are concerned about that are out there protesting.
And we know leading up to these demonstrations, yes, we heard a lot from organizers, but we also heard a lot from critics who were saying that basically, you know, that they were calling these protests un-American and really criticizing these as well. But I do believe we are going to go back to Plano because I believe our scene there has changed a bit, I'm being told, if we want to take a live look at what we were just looking at in Plano.
Yeah, it's
all right,
we're seeing here.
I see rain is coming down. I don't know if we have Natalie, but we do see rain is starting to come down here. Yep. And some of the crowds are starting to kind of disperse there.
Very different from what we saw.
Morgan, I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yes, Natalie, go ahead.
Perfect. Okay, sorry guys. It's hard to hear out here, but yes, we are seeing, you know, the rain is starting to pour. Cassie has been warning us about incoming storms all morning long. Sure enough, timely enough, the rain is coming down here in Plano, and we've started to see the crowd begin to disperse. Some of the crowd is sheltering under the Wells Fargo Bank, the Bank of America across the street, and some other retail here. So they're looking to try to continue their protest, but right now, the honking continues. People are still out here for as much as they are willing to keep up with the rain for that, for however long that lasts.
All right, Natalie, and thank you so much. And Rebecca, very similar to what we were saying last, when we were talking about this in June, it was really, really hot. Now we're dealing with rain. Let's check in with Cassie, who is here in studio with us, who is really keeping an eye on our forecast today. The other big story here.
Yes, so we do have the chance of seeing some storms that could be a little rowdy later today, but here's the deal. That chance for severe weather, that is going to be extremely low as we go throughout the day today. So our WFA weather alert day, it starts technically at noon and goes until 4 o'clock, but right now, nothing severe. In fact, Dallas and Fort Worth, we're just going to be in that marginal risk for seeing any severe weather. However, the atmosphere is going to be a little bit more unstable east of the Metroplex, and that's where you find that slight risk of seeing maybe some quarter-size hail and wind gusts of 60 miles an hour. This is our WFA Studios Dallas camera, and the clouds continue to look a little ominous. It's looking a little darker because the rain is beginning to move in, but everything across the Metroplex for the most part, it's just a few showers. In fact, I haven't seen a whole lot of lightning yet. That is not the case, though, off to the north and west. So zooming in a little bit more closely here, you can see how the rain has begun around Plano and Louisville. Denton certainly getting that rain. McKinney's had a couple of showers, but Sherman seeing showers and thunderstorms. We also have another line of thunderstorms out to the west, and that is moving towards Decatur. Also Saginaw, Fort Worth, you're seeing some showers, some storms right around Mineral Wells. And you can see on the eastern sides of Weatherford, that line is coming together a little bit more, but not really seeing a whole lot of lightning with that. And the good news is across the Metroplex, I'm not seeing really any lightning strikes with any of this, but in between Louisville and Carrollton, there is going to be a pocket of some pretty heavy rain, some light rain just east of Fort Worth, and everything is moving off to the east. So at about noon today, we're going to continue to see some showers and even a few thunderstorms. That's going to continue 1 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it looks like most of it will be on the southeast sides of the Metroplex, and by 5, we should be nice and dry. The cold front doesn't even move in until later tonight, at least the main cold front. That's moving in sometime around midnight tonight. Behind it, we're going to have a breezy north wind, and temperatures will be dropping down into the 50s for tomorrow morning. Morgan, back to you.
All right, Cassie, thank you so much. And we do want to get out to Fort Worth, where Luke Clary is live for us. And Luke, you're covering the other side of the Metroplex on this.
Well, hey there, guys. We're here in downtown Fort Worth at Burke-Burnett Park, where, as you can see, there are several thousand protesters gathered here. Go ahead and take a look out this way. And as you can see, the rain really hasn't put a damper on this massive protest. As you can see, they also have there's a stage set up here. Emotions running high. You can probably hear the shouting over the loudspeaker, sort of echoing across these buildings downtown. I just spoke with a security official here who tells me that, again, he estimates that there are several thousand participants here. You may sort of see this crowd ebb and flow now and start to kind of thin out because there's a planned march across downtown, a predetermined route across downtown Fort Worth. We've seen several security barricades and a large police presence here as well. And here you can see folks lined up with various flags, a number of people dressed up in the Handmaid's Tale robes as well. And so I can tell you earlier today we were at No Kings protest in downtown Arlington, and the mood there was just maybe a little different. Folks were smiling and chatting with one another. I'll tell you, the crowd that we've seen here so far seems to have a little bit more of a harder edge. The speakers here on the stage leading people in chants, that banner of No Kings, we've heard that chant breaking out on occasion. Lots of signs here, some of them with choice language that we can't show you here on broadcast news, but much of the criticism aimed toward the Trump administration's policies around immigration, around LGBTQ rights, around women's rights, contraception, and things of that nature that we have seen in previous protests as well. But again, as you can clearly see, just a very large crowd here. Security tells me in the thousands. The good news is, based on my conversation with security officials here, that there have been really no major incidents. They said that they actually did have to run off one person, he said, in his words, on our own side, a guy that had a paintball gun, but no reports whatsoever of any real weapons or real safety concerns, or even of any counter-protesters, which of course can be a concern when you have a crowd this big and passions are running this high. I'll let you kind of listen in as this speaker up here on the stage is sort of directing this crowd now to join in the march around downtown Fort Worth.
All right, Luke, thank you so much for reporting from Fort Worth. And we do just want to apologize to you. I know he mentioned that he saw some of those signs with profanity, and I know that some of those popped up on the screen for you. We do try to avoid that.
Yeah, it's live TV, and I tell you, it's really hard because I know when I was out there the last time, people want to go in, they see the camera, and they intentionally, no matter how much you try to keep them out of the shot, they'll just still run in there.
So certainly trying to avoid those things, but do want to apologize. That's certainly not the goal here. We do want to give you a live look at some of the other rallies we're seeing around the country. This is DC, looking at our nation's capital. You can see folks, lots of folks out there, you know, joining this demonstration. We see different flags that are flying out there, and a big crowd out there in DC. I believe we have a look at a couple of other cities. We're going to take a look at New York City here. We have a different view than we had last time. We're able to kind of be on the ground there, walking with the people who are participating. And Rebecca, you just see different signs.
Yeah, you know, Morgan, one of the things that Luke said, now we're going to Philadelphia, we're going to see what's happening in Philly, which had one of the largest marches the last time. But I want to say that that's Philly right there. You can see they had a huge protest back in June. And I just want to say that what Luke said, that, you know, they're basically policing themselves. A lot of these organizers are like, do not give police a reason for this, you know, to eventually get out of control. And I did see in the crowd before where they were kicking people out if they saw that they were trying to cause trouble or stir up some trouble. And so they are really trying to police the crowds out there, at least the organizers. But you obviously sometimes have people that show up and want to try to agitate things. But for the most part, and you can see there in Philly, everything is peaceful so far that we have seen across the nation. I was just texting with some officers in Fort Worth and Dallas. They said everything's very calm here as well. And
you know, one of the things, I know we've got just a couple minutes left here, that we were talking about a few minutes ago is that, you know, on the other side of this argument, we've heard a lot of criticism and a lot of officials saying, you know, that calling these rallies un-American, saying that these people hate America. And the organizers, I listened in on a call this week, said that is not true. They believe, you know, there is nothing more American than protesting, and they're doing this, they said, out of patriotism and wanting to show what they stand for and why they love their country so much. And to your point, they kept emphasizing the need to remain peaceful, to keep away from fitting into any narrative that these are dangerous demonstrations, because that, as they said, would not be accomplishing that goal that they want to accomplish.
And you know, it's interesting because in Austin, I'm not sure where this is right now.
New York City.
That's New York City. In Austin, obviously, Governor Abbott is saying that he has heard of some sort of Antifa type ideology type people coming out there. Antifa obviously is not actually an organization. It's more of an ideology, people that are anti-fascist that come out at times. So he was sitting in the National Guard into Austin. We're not right now seeing any National Guard that I can tell in Philly or New York or Fort Worth or anywhere else here in Texas.
But we are going to keep looking at these views. We're going to take a little break. We'll be back here at noon. And just do want to note, usually we have our own chopper that flies over these scenes. We're not able to have them right now because of weather in our area, but we will be back here at noon giving you different views from different cities, and of course here in North Texas, different views on the ground, and of course a check on your forecast. Thank you for joining us on WFAA Plus. We are covering two big stories here in North Texas. Protests across our area, more than a dozen demonstrations, all part of the nationwide No Kings movement. And also taking a look at our skies in North Texas as we are looking at potential storms in our area throughout the afternoon. I'm Morgan Young, and I'm joined by senior crime and justice reporter Rebecca Lopez. Rebecca, we are already seeing a large showing at the demonstrations across our area.
Yeah, look, the one in Plano was pretty large. I think 3,000 people there. Dallas initially was expecting, they thought maybe a couple of thousand, but based on what we're seeing across the Metroplex, I think there's going to be a lot more. And last time there were about 10 to 15,000 when they had this very similar march back in June.
Back in June, absolutely. And, you know, we are going to take a look at some of the other cities, but we want to start in Dallas because this one's actually scheduled to start here at noon, and we can already see people are out there gathering.
Yeah, and you know, Morgan, one of the interesting things that I found when I was out there before is that you see people from all walks of life. I talked to a woman who was 80 years old who had never been to a protest or a march of any kind, and she just felt compelled. She was concerned about her health care, about Medicaid, about some of the issues that are facing people that are elderly here in the country. And then there were people there from LGBTQ. There were people playing Vicente Fernandez music, people from Mexico, people that were also immigrants to this country, people from all walks of life. Just, it was a hodgepodge. And I believe that this is actually what we're also going to see here today.
And one of the questions, you know, anytime we have a demonstration like this, and if you're just joining us, we're taking a look at the No Kings rally in Dallas that's just getting underway here. We're scheduled to start at noon. You know, security is also always a big question, Rebecca.
Yes.
And we know you're so well sourced for law enforcement throughout our area. You know, how do our departments look at events like these? How do they prepare for events like these?
Well, I tell you, they've been having meetings at the command staff level now for a while, preparing for these marches. And what Dallas Police has traditionally done is they do not show any sort of force. They don't want to look militarized. So they keep their officers, trust me, they're around. Although right now they also have a lot of officers at the State Fair right now. But also what they do is they just keep everybody behind the scenes, and they'll only go in if they need to. Trust me, they're there. They have plenty of officers on hand. But typically when you do see officers, if they show up in riot gear, Dallas Police's philosophy has always been that basically sends a bad message, that you're not expecting a peaceful protest. And these protesters have all said, we are here to protest peacefully. And they have said, and I've actually watched as they have kicked people out of these protests who sometimes may be causing some problems. And now I think that we're going to Tiffany Liu, who is actually at the protest in Dallas. Tiffany, we're still a little ways away. Oh, it's actually starting right now at noon. So Tiffany, what are you seeing out there?
Here has been crazy, and we're going to start walking toward the protest at this time. Let's just close up our trunk here and lock up and head towards that protest. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people already here. What's going on? Oh, we got to lock the car. I'm sorry, guys. Just want to make sure we're safe out here, but it took us a long time to park. We got here around 11:30, 11:40, started circling around. So many people. We drove by this protest. I want to show you guys another camera that's at the protest right now, and we can see that there are so many people there, tons of people holding signs, holding American flags. People are dressed up. Saw someone earlier dressed up as a Statue of Liberty. But a lot of people are going to be at this No Kings protest. The one in Dallas expected to be very large. We know that last time there were 1,800 communities across the country with these No Kings protests. This time, 2,500, over a dozen here in the DFW area, and this one in Dallas is going to be a big one. I can tell you that Lauren and I, along with our security guard, we parked several blocks away just to get here. So we are going to head to that protest right now. We're going to try to talk to some people, talk to some organizers. There is police presence here. We see a lot of it downtown right now. And at this point, very peaceful protest, but it is just getting underway. Probably just started a couple of minutes ago. For now, let's send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Tiffany, thank you. And if you're just joining us, or perhaps you're not familiar with what the No Kings movement is, as you've heard, this is the second iteration of these protests. We saw them back in June, and Rebecca, you were on the ground for those.
Yes.
The message from organizers and the national organizers of this is that America does not and should not have a king. And so these are protests that are directly pushing back against some of the policies and actions we've seen from the current administration. And we know there are more than 2,500 demonstrations scheduled for across the country, and we have quite a few here in North Texas. I believe Clary, our Luke Clary, is in Fort Worth. I believe he's going to join us now. Luke, I know there are so many different signs, and there are people with different messages out there. What are you hearing from this crowd? Why are they out there?
Well, Morgan, I can tell you that the loud crowd here is moving now, as this is the starting point here, Burke Burnett Park in Fort Worth, the starting point for a march through downtown Fort Worth. And as you mentioned, the issues at heart here of the No Kings protests are wide and various, and you can see that in the signs that people have hoisted up. You know, I was speaking with one older gentleman who told me that he felt like what was happening now, this moment in American politics, is very similar to the unrest of the 1960s. I spoke to another young woman who said that she felt like her reproductive rights were at stake here. We see lots of signs sharply critical of the Trump administration's approach to immigration enforcement. You see some signs that are rather humorous and others that are really stark in their messaging. As we just kind of take a look over here, and the rain is starting to pick up here, but that doesn't seem to have discouraged people. You see lots and lots of umbrellas out there as well. And one other thing that I've noticed here today, and this is something that I've talked about with a number of protesters here, where we see liberal or left-wing, left-leaning protesters really embracing the American flag, themes of patriotism. They say that protesting and demonstrating are patriotic things that you can do as an American, when in recent years I think that we've more closely associated those images, the American flag, with the conservative or MAGA movement. Again, what we're seeing here, I think, is an effort to really sort of reclaim that patriotic ground. So, as you can see, though, the rain is starting to pick up significantly. You can probably hear the crowd reacting to that as they make their march through downtown Fort Worth, and they're going to be making their way back here to Burke Burnett Park. And the rally almost certainly will continue, but we'll just have to wait and see how this weather impacts the size of this crowd, which I would estimate in the several thousands, perhaps as many as 10,000 so far. But as you can probably see right now, it is starting to come down. Morgan, Rebecca.
Look, that's very different from what we saw in June when people were passing out. It was so hot. So I don't know if they welcome the rain or not.
So if you want to sweat or do you want to be rained on? We're seeing big crowds either way. We do want to check in with Cassie. The other big story that we've got in North Texas is our weather today. And Cassie, you've been tracking that.
Yeah, we knew that it was going to be happening, especially in between noon and 4 o'clock is when our heaviest of the rain and storms would be moving through. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. Fort Worth, that visibility has come way down because that rain is really coming down, and temperatures have actually lowered since, the last hour. We're down into the low 70s, and that wind right now, it's out of the northwest at 14 miles an hour. So not the best day to be outside, but these rain and storms are going to continue for at least the next few hours or so. Some of the heaviest of the rain right now moving through parts of the Metroplex, but we still have another line to go just west of that. So looking a little bit more closely here around the Metroplex, we do have that rain that's picking up, and down in between really downtown Dallas and Garley, even a couple of lightning strikes picking up as well. So that's becoming a little bit more heavy. You can see the scattered showers and a few storms in between Fort Worth, Salt Lake, DFW, Arlington. The rain starting to be a little bit more light, though. It looks like around McKinney. It looks like it's going to be picking up just east of McKinney. And then we've got rain and thunderstorms in between Bowie, Decatur, and eventually towards Rome. Even Weatherford, you're starting to see a little bit more lightning as well. Around Mineral Wells, that's where we were seeing the stronger storms earlier this morning, but now it looks like some of the heavy rain and storms are also kind of redeveloping southwest of Mineral Wells and also moving off to the north and east. So zooming a little bit more closely here, you can see that line that's forming in between Dallas, Garland, up towards Wiley, just east of Plano now. That is heavy rain, a couple of lightning strikes, which is obviously dangerous enough, but we also have the heavy rain in between South Lake, DFW, or Irving, and Arlington. I don't see any lightning with that right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if that does develop here eventually. So as we go throughout the next few hours, we're just going to keep this chance of rain and storms going. It looks like around 4 o'clock, most of that will now be on the southeast sides of the Metroplex, while Fort Worth should be drying out by then, and by 5 o'clock, our eastern counties still seeing the rain, but the Metroplex looks dry by then. So if you have any evening plans, I think you're going to be just fine. Eventually the cold front moves in, but that cold front likely not moving in until around midnight or so. Behind it, tomorrow looks beautiful. Lots of sunshine and temperatures in the 70s. Morgan, back to you.
Sounds like a gorgeous day. We got to get through this rainy day, then we get the gorgeous day. And I know that we're kind of seeing how the weather is affecting some of the protests that we're covering today. We want to get back out to Natalie, Haddad, in Plano. I know a few minutes ago it had started to come down. The crowds were kind of dispersing. What are you seeing now, Natalie?
Well, the No Kings rally here in Plano specifically is nearing its end. It was scheduled from 10 to 12. The rain did deter some people, but not everybody. You can still see in the distance that people are still protesting along Preston and Parker Road. And those who did decide to get into their cars, Morgan and Rebecca, that did not stop them from coming around Preston and Parker and still honking their horns. People are recording from their phones. They're holding American flags. You can probably hear and see some of that right now. Right on camera, right on cue. Yeah, that has not stopped everything you're hearing. I'm not even sure if you can really hear me, guys, but that has not stopped. So we'll go ahead and walk this way and show you a little bit of what we're seeing right now. Now, all week I've been talking to the Collin County Democratic Party. They specifically put on the Plano No Kings protest. Frisco and McKinney were hosted independently without sponsors or hosts. And we were told that earlier this week, Plano was, oh, we have a friend in front of us, pardon us. We were told that Plano had about 800 people RSVP'd to arrive to this particular No Kings protest. We arrived and saw more than 3,000 people. Frisco, we weren't super sure of what that was going to look like at the beginning of the week, but then came today and we saw that about 1,500 people showed up in Frisco, and they were along Stonebrook, and that protest went all the way down past Main Street, if you are familiar with that area. So some of what we're seeing here still, even despite the weather, thankfully the rain has kind of lightened up here. We'll be careful of some of the signs we're passing right now, Sean Mark. Don't want to show too many cuss words on air. Some of what we're seeing is people trying to hone in the message that they want a free and fair democracy, something that they don't feel like they're getting right now. And the visuals have been really strong. We have seen parents pushing children in strollers. We have seen young people with handmade signs. We have seen older people waving flags. And I've been saying it all morning, but it's true. We've talked to so many people from all party affiliations. We've talked to Jews, we have talked to Arabs, we have talked to church groups, we have talked to pastors, we have talked to veterans and the son and daughters of veterans. And all of them have this overarching message that they just want Texans to get out and vote for something they feel is more free and more fair than what the Trump administration is doing now. They've also spoken out against messages from Governor Greg Abbott and Senator Ted Cruz that we have heard this week. Governor Abbott linking No Kings protests to violent Antifa members, though we do not personally have any evidence of that. Senator Ted Cruz saying earlier this week that No Kings protesters are paid and backed by George Soros. And they really wanted us to send the message here, protesters today, that they are not paid. They did this themselves. This is all independently hosted here in Plano, hosted by the Collin County Democratic Party. So some obviously hosted with help of other organizations. But that is a message that they're really trying to send, that they want to keep it peaceful. They just want to get the message out that they believe the United States of America deserves a better democracy than what we are experiencing now under the Trump administration. And more than anything, they want people to go out and vote, especially in those midterm elections coming up in 2026. I'll send it back to you in studio, Morgan and Rebecca.
Yeah, and Morgan, one of the things that I find interesting is typically what you see at these marches is everyone comes to Dallas. What you are seeing is in Collin County, which is typically a very red area of Texas, and you are seeing large protests there and in the northern counties, and typically those tend to vote for Republicans. And Natalie is saying that she's seeing both Democrats and Republicans out there protesting, which I find very interesting.
And you kind of noted that last time, seeing just like a diverse group of people, ages, causes. We do want to get back to Tiffany Liu, who has arrived to the demonstration in Dallas. I know she had to walk quite a bit to get there. Tiffany, what are you seeing now? Hopefully you caught your breath.
Yeah, Morgan, we walked several blocks to get here, and you could just see, I said hundreds earlier, there are thousands of people at this plaza right now. Let's pan over here and take a look. You can see all the different signs.
All right, we lost Tiffany there. We're going to try to get her back. We know anytime that there's a big gathering like this and we're depending on cell phone service, it can get kind of tricky. But you can see there's someone up there speaking, and I'm not sure if we're able to listen into what that person's saying. We have Tiffany back. We're going back to Tiffany. All right, we got you back.
Me again. Okay,
yes.
Well, let's send it. All right, we're going to send it back out here. I just want you guys to see what's going on right now. Thousands of people at this plaza here in Dallas. People have come from across the Metroplex to be a part of this No Kings protest right here. You can see all the different issues that people are fighting for. We're talking immigration issues, gender issues, things that they do not agree with the Trump administration on, and just tons and tons of people are here. See a Ukrainian flag as well over here. There are just a lot of people in this crowd, lots of color. And the demographics here, it's a wide range as well. We see young people, we see people who, you know, are of mature age as well. There's somebody talking right now, but again, there's so many people here that I can't even really hear what they're saying at this time. This protest here in Dallas, it's expected to go from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock this afternoon. So it's going to be a long protest. And this weather here, it's not stopping anybody. Right now, it's only sprinkling just a little bit, so they're actually kind of lucky because it seems to be pretty cold out here during this protest. But again, folks are out here. Some people are out here with their families as well, spending their Saturday afternoon fighting for their rights, making sure that their voices are heard. So we're gonna go there and hopefully hear what they're saying. We'll bring you some more updates in a little bit. I'll talk to some of the people who are here and see what they're doing here and why they have decided to come here and spend their Saturday afternoon here. But for now, let's send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Tiffany, thank you so much. We are going to check on the forecast in just a second, but we want to address something that Natalie was talking about, and that's that there were many officials that were kind of speaking out against these demonstrations in the days leading up to today. We know that Governor Greg Abbott posted on X on Thursday at about 1 in the afternoon. I'm going to read you the message that he posted. He said, "Today I directed the Department of Public Safety and National Guard to surge forces in Austin ahead of an Antifa-linked protest. Texas will not tolerate chaos. Anyone destroying property or committing acts of violence will be swiftly arrested. Law and order will be enforced." And that's kind of a sentiment we had heard from a number of Republican leaders ahead of these demonstrations, referencing these demonstrations.
And Morgan, I think it's important to note that Antifa is more of an ideology. There's no structure, there is no funding, there are no organizers of Antifa. Antifa is an anti-fascist movement that started back in the 1920s to fight Hitler and Mussolini. And what these groups believe is they fight hate, they fight basically any kind of fascist beliefs. They get out there and they protest anti-hate groups. They were out in basically in the 2010s is when they really became more prominent in the U.S. and they were out there against some of the white supremacists, some of the neo-Nazi groups that they were protesting against. Most of the time, people of that ideology have kept it peaceful, but they have had some clashes in the past with police in some cities, but there is no formal funded group called Antifa, and it's very important that we note that.
And we did know, you know, Natalie mentioned that as well, that there was no really evidence of that. And we do know that the organizers of these protests have been very vocal in addressing the criticism of these rallies, saying, hey, our focus is to have our message come across, and we want to keep it peaceful so that our message can come across. Our other big story today is the weather. We saw Luke out in Fort Worth, Cassie, just getting soaked out there. This is the other big story that we're following today. Storms coming through our area potentially.
Potentially, it is actually happening right now. The rain and storms are moving through the Metroplex right on time. We've been talking about our WFA weather alert day starting at noon and going until 4 o'clock this afternoon. These storms are moving from west to east across North Texas as we speak. The good news is we currently do not have any severe weather. That threat for severe weather, that's going to be very low as we go throughout the afternoon. So right now we're looking at downtown Dallas, seeing some rain. It becomes a little bit more heavy the north you go. So Garland, just east sides of Plano, eventually moving into Greenville. The heaviest of the rain and storms east of McKinney right now, and also over towards Bonham, and then out to the west we have some showers. And I'm not seeing any lightning strikes right now in between Louisville, South Lake, DFW down towards Arlington and Fort Worth, but there is some very heavy rain. However, we do have a line of storms that does have quite a bit of lightning just moving through and east of Decatur, and all of this will eventually move east into the Metroplex as well. Also Mineral Wells, you're not done with the rain and storms. We have another kind of batch of showers and thunderstorms that will be moving your way as well. Zooming in a little bit more closely to the Metroplex, you can see that rain that's right around downtown Dallas, and it goes all the way up towards Wiley. But again, this is very heavy rain with a couple of lightning strikes, and lightning, that's going to be the dangerous part. But we also have that heavy rain in between Louisville and Arlington, and this is going to go on off and on for the next few hours. Guys, back to you.
All right, Cassie, thank you so much. And I believe we're going to take a quick break, and then we will come back and we'll have more coverage of the rallies across our area in our forecast. We are bringing you two big stories on this Saturday here on WFAA+. Millions of Americans across the country joining together for No Kings rallies. You're taking a live look at the demonstration in Boston, where you can see so many people are gathered there. At the same time, we are in a first alert weather day here in North Texas and keeping our eye on storms and rain. Thank you for being with us. I'm Morgan Young.
And I'm Rebecca Lopez.
And we've got to look at some of the demonstrations across the country before we get to the ones here.
Yeah, we're going to go to the one in Boston that we were just looking at. Oh, now we're in D.C. So D.C. did not have a protest back in June because if you remember, the president was celebrating his birthday and there was a military parade on that day. So this is the first protest of this kind in D.C.
And I believe we have another picture as well. Again, these are happening all over. Another look at Boston here, Rebecca. So many folks here.
Yeah, and Boston had over 1 million at its last protest in June. It combined with Boston Pride, which the LGBTQ community also had a huge march and rally as well.
So these No Kings rallies are all part of a national movement. There are more than 2,500 demonstrations scheduled for across the country. We have multiple here in North Texas. And the organizers of these events say that these are demonstrations that are pushing back against the actions of our current presidential administration, multiple actions that this administration has taken. And we're seeing these different issues as we've been covering this throughout the morning in different signs, different messages. And here's a look at what's happening in Dallas right now. Rebecca, I know you covered the first round of this in Dallas.
Yeah, and what you see here is a lot of people from all walks of life, some people that are protesting or standing up for freedom of speech, others that are protesting the fact that they believe that the president's policies are very heavy-handed when it comes to the LGBTQ community, immigration, people that are upset of various policies of the president and his administration. You see the American flag waving there. They definitely have encouraged the organizers of these rallies to bring American flags, to show your patriotism and to stay peaceful. That is the key here, is they keep telling everyone, we want to remain peaceful. We want to exercise the First Amendment right to have your voice heard. That is what the organizers have been saying.
And one of the things that we've seen, you know, the demonstrations in North Texas started up in Collin County at about 9 o'clock this morning. And one thing that we've seen here in Dallas, up in Collin County and Tarrant County, is just the sheer volume of people who are showing up here. I know we've got to look. I believe Natalie Haddad has a show of us. She has some video for us that we'll be able to look at in a bit, but was saying when she was up in Frisco, so many more people than she thought. In the last hour, those crowd sizes doubled.
Yeah, there were, I think, 3,000 people in Plano alone. And now we're going to some of the Frisco video. You see, this is when it started to rain, and so you saw some of the crowd disperse, but they had a very large showing in an area that is typically a red part of the state. But you see, and Natalie said they had both Democrats and Republicans that she spoke to out at these protests. So that's very interesting that you're seeing all these people at these rallies. And let's listen in to some of the people that she interviewed out there.
This is not just Democrats. It is Democrats, independents, Republicans, non-voters that we hope to turn into voters. This is not a Democrat organization. It's not an organization. It's a collective grassroots people that are just all kinds of people.
And again, we've been covering, you know, just different areas, trying to get across the Metroplex to just show you what this has looked like across our area. And Luke Clary has actually been in Tarrant County for us. He's in Fort Worth now. And another place where we saw a lot of people. And Luke, it's raining there, and folks were beginning to march the last time we checked in with you.
Yeah, that's right, Morgan. I mean, it's been off and on rain here, really coming down in sheets at times. I'll tell you that the massive crowd that we saw here at Burke-Burnett Park is now on the move. They are marching through downtown Fort Worth. We're expecting them to arrive back here at any moment. And when they do, the rally will continue. They've had a speaker set up on a stage in the middle of the park. Their voices just echoing across the buildings here downtown. And you know, we've seen passions running very high here today. A wide variety of issues on these signs that people have raised, sharply critical of the Trump administration's, in particular, the Trump administration's immigration policies and federal agents going into American cities like Chicago. That is front and center on many people's minds. You could see some of those who are still here in the park just kind of awaiting the arrival of the thousands of people who are marching. And again, we expect them to be here any moment now. There's a large police presence here. We've seen security barricades here. They're directing traffic. And so far, in terms of security, we really have not seen any major issues. I was speaking to a safety volunteer here today who said that they did have to, as I mentioned earlier, shepherd someone out of here who brought a paint gun to the crowd. Someone clearly just trying to agitate the crowd, but no real weapons or any significant fights. There's been no sign of any counter-protesters here either. So, and I should mention that it looks like the sun might be peeking out here as well. So the umbrellas may be coming down, but the signs are still up here in downtown Fort Worth.
Thank you so much, Luke. Look, I was talking to some sources out there in Fort Worth. They're saying they are not seeing any arrests at this time, that it's been, very calm. And now we're going to go to some video in Arlington.
Yes, Luke was out there earlier for us, also in Tarrant County, and you can see similar to what we've been seeing all throughout the morning. Folks lining the streets there, plenty of signs, plenty of American flags, and that message of no kings. And, we just want to refresh folks on what that is. This movement is really sending the message that America does not and should not have a king, and that's all part of folks really protesting some of the actions we've seen from our current presidential administration. Many believing that some of those actions are very authoritarian and pushing back against them. And so we've seen these demonstrations across the country, so many right here, and even as some are wrapping up, some are starting. And one of the later ones that started was actually in Dallas, and I believe we have Tiffany Liu who's out there.
Yeah, Morgan, this started at 12 o'clock, but what time is it now? It's 12:30. More and more people are still coming here to join this No Kings protest right now in downtown Dallas, and this is expected to be one of the bigger ones in the DFW area. You can hear the crowds cheering behind me as well. There's somebody speaking up over there talking about different things. I heard them speaking about ICE and immigration earlier. If we pan over this way, you can see that there's some people over here. There's a gentleman in an army shirt. There's a lot of veterans out here is what I've noticed. His sign over there says no troops in U.S. cities, as we know what's going on with that. And there's just so many people out here for different causes. People are fighting for gender rights, and people are fighting for immigration issues. And these signs, people are vocal with their signs, with their voices, and that's why they want to be out here. It's because they want to make sure that their voices are heard. They want to make sure that they do still have their freedom of speech and their freedom to show exactly how they feel about this current Trump administration. As you can see, as we walk through this crowd, excuse me, everybody. There are so many people here. I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of people in this downtown plaza right now. They do plan to march in a bit as well. I'm sort of just zigzagging through this crowd right now. But look at all these different signs. I mean, they're very vocal. People have brought their families here. The demographics here is extremely wide. We see people of all different genders, all different ethnicities. We see people bringing their families. I saw a woman earlier who's pregnant, and people just wanting to make sure that the next generation, they're fighting for the rights that they believe in. And so we're going to be out here. When they go on that march, we're going to follow them. A lot to see out here. We're going to try to talk to a couple more people, but for now, let's send it back to y'all in the studio.
All right, Tiffany Liu in Dallas for us. Thank you so much. And Rebecca, you covered the Dallas demonstrations back in June, and I know you've covered so many protests in your career. And one thing that stuck with me that you talked about then and today is just the diversity of these crowds.
Yeah, I've never seen crowds like this before. And again, I have covered all sorts of protests here in Dallas. But what is unique about this particular No Kings rally this week and what we saw back in June is the diversity, and some people that have never actually ever protested before that came out for the very first time to protest, to have their voices heard, to rally against what they believe is an injustice that is happening across the country, and protesting the President of the United States. This is now Fort Worth. You can see that they are marching down the street. They're headed back to their original point where Luke is, one of our reporters, is standing by right now. So far, it again has remained very peaceful. You do see you will have a large police presence, both in Dallas and Fort Worth. You just won't be able to see them because, Morgan, as I've been telling you, typically they want to keep from looking aggressive. The idea of these protests is to let people have their voice heard and to de-escalate any kind of situation that might come up so that you don't have the tear gas, the clashes with police. Police don't want to get hurt. They don't want demonstrators hurt. They want people to have the right to protest, and that's what you're seeing all across the Metroplex today.
So you are looking live now, really at the front of that march there in Fort Worth, and we've had crews all over our area covering this. So we want to show what we saw a bit earlier this morning in Collin County, specifically Plano, with Natalie Haddad.
We are in the heart of a North Texas region that is predominantly red. It is Collin County. Right now we are in Plano, where over 3,000 people came to a No Kings protest. And even though it rained, that did not deter protesters from leaving. Behind us, handmade signs held by people still here. The visuals have been strong all morning long. Families pushing strollers, college students with handmade signs, older adults waving flags and chanting. Here in Plano, again, we've seen more than 3,000 people. In Frisco, we saw over 1,500 people protesting. Now the message here, the core message is all comes down to one thing. It is no kings, no crowns, no thrones. This is a refusal of what the organizers describe as authoritarian overreach by the Trump administration. The movement frames this moment as a stand for democracy, something these protesters do not feel we are getting right now. That has been the overarching message today, is that these protesters want people to get out and vote and try to receive a fair and free democracy, something they do not feel they are receiving right now under this Trump administration. Now, we have spoken to all party affiliations today, Democrats, Republicans, Independents. We have talked to Jewish people, Arabs. We have talked to veterans, the son and daughters of veterans. We have talked to church groups, pastors, people affiliated with non-organizations, and all of them, again, just want people to get out and vote for a free and fair democracy, something they do not feel like they are receiving in this day.
We don't need any fascism. We just need love and peace, and we need our government to get back to work. It is not the Democrats' fault. The Republicans can go in there and they can start negotiating and just work with each side.
While we did see a couple of counter-protesters wearing Trump hats, we did not see any organized counter-protesters here in Collin County. It is our understanding that they did not receive permits in time to be here at the same time as the No Kings protests. In Collin County, I'm Natalie Haddad.
And so, Rebecca, something that you just heard from her, we were talking about the issues, because again, we saw the first round of the No Kings protests back in June, and at that point, probably there were a number of issues people were talking about, but certainly immigration enforcement was at the forefront of that, and there are new issues that have come up since then that folks are talking about.
Well, absolutely. You have the government shutdown, you have the firings, you have people that are now very concerned about the price of food at the grocery store as you see the tariffs kick in, and you see that, and you talk to economists who say that those tariffs are being passed down to the consumer and to the small business owner. In fact, I know of a business owner that was going out to the Dallas, owns a Mexican restaurant in Dallas, and was going out to this protest because they're afraid that they're going to have to shut their doors. They cannot afford some of the overhead that they're having to spend now when it comes to some of the goods that they're seeing and the price increasing for them.
So all kinds of people, a number of different issues, we're seeing them all over. We do want to get to the other big story that we are covering today, and that is our weather. Cassie, we saw Luke out there at one point getting drenched, then the sun was kind of coming out for him. We know there's a lot moving across our area today.
Yeah, I hope he's paying attention to the forecast, though, because I don't know that sun's going to last very long. There is more rain on the way, unfortunately, for some of us, but it's been so long since we've actually had this decent amount of rainfall. Unfortunately, it comes on a day when so many people are trying to spend their time outdoors. But yeah, over the past several hours, the rain and thunderstorms have been increasing across North Texas, moving from west to east, but fortunately, no severe weather, at least not yet. And that threat overall, that's going to stay very low. However, we do have that kind of a stronger line of rain, or at least some very heavy rain, with quite a bit of lightning in between Irving to just north of downtown Dallas, Garland. You can see that just west of Greenville and eventually Commerce. That's a pretty hefty line of some very heavy rain. And then we also have the showers around Gainesville down towards Sanger and Denton. You're not done with the rain just yet. It is coming your way, but just a couple of lightning strikes in behind that. at. But zooming in a little bit more closely too around downtown Dallas, you can tell that more rain is coming our way. There is some lightning with this, but I'm only seeing a few lightning strikes just west of downtown Dallas. And again, this is moving off to the east, but some pretty heavy rain just south of Arlington, also moving off to the east, roughly around 30 to 35 miles an hour. We could actually see some wind gusts as high as around 32, maybe 35 miles an hour. We also have the rain and storms right in between Mineral Wells and Weatherford. This is lifting off to the east and northeast. More showers and storms are headed towards Granbury and also towards Stephenville. So some pretty heavy pockets of rainfall there. As we go throughout the rest of the afternoon, we're still at least going to have some on and off showers and thunderstorms until about 4 o'clock this afternoon. Most of the Metroplex would be dry, or just seeing some light rain by then. By about 5 o'clock, it's really all in our eastern counties, and the rest of the evening looks nice and quiet. It looks dry. The main cold front moving in late tonight. We're looking at sometime around midnight. Behind it, we're going to have a breezy north wind through tomorrow morning. Temperatures down in the 50s, so it's finally going to feel like fall. And Sunday afternoon, very nice with temperatures topping out in the 70s. Guys, back to you.
We get to wear a sweater. Thank you.
I definitely would have taken that weather versus what happened in June when we were passing out. It was so hot out there. And so I think probably some people are welcoming the rain.
The rain. They'll
sure.
take that. Before we let you go, we're going to take a break. But before we do that, we do want to give you another live look just at what this scene looks like across the country. We've got a few cities to show you. We're starting with Washington, D.C. here.
Yeah, and Morgan, they did not have a protest last time because the president was having his military birthday on that day and the military parade. So you are seeing large crowds there in Washington, D.C. today.
Yeah, we've seen that pretty consistently throughout the morning. Looking at Boston, where we saw a huge crowd there. And you said that was the case back in June as well.
Yes, because they combined the No Kings rally with Pride Month or with Pride Parade as well. And so they combined those rallies. They had over 1 million people there. And, you know, they are expecting some celebrities at some of these rallies as well.
Yeah, we see a stage there. I wonder if anyone's going to pop up there, but so many people out there in Boston. And then lastly, a look in Atlanta where you can see that street there.
Yeah.
It looks like they might be marching. I can't tell, but just completely packed.
Yeah, and some of the celebrities that I just looked up, they say Kerry Washington's going to be out, John Legend, Robert De Niro, Jimmy Kimmel, Jane Fonda, that have all said that they're going to show up at some of these rallies across the country to also have their voices heard.
So we're seeing them all across the country, multiple, more than a dozen here in North Texas. Some already wrapped for the morning, some underway, including a large one expected here in Dallas. And of course, Fort Worth was large as well. We're going to take a break and we will check back in with you at 1 p.m.
Nice.
We are bringing you two big stories in North Texas here on WFAA+. We are seeing No Kings protests across the country and more than a dozen here in North Texas. You're taking a live look at the demonstration in Dallas. And we are also keeping an eye on our forecast. It is a first alert weather day, so we're going to have an update for that for you. But we are beginning with those protests. I'm Morgan Young. I'm joined by senior crime and justice reporter Rebecca Lopez. Rebecca, we've been covering these events that we've seen across our area since earlier this morning.
Yes, and we had a pretty large crowd show up in Collin County. There's a very large crowd in Dallas, but right now my sources are saying it's very calm and peaceful. And at 1:30, they are expected to start marching through downtown Dallas.
Our Tiffany Liu is actually in Dallas at that demonstration. We're going to check in with her. And Tiffany, you've been there for a little bit now. What are you hearing? What are you seeing? I see it's raining there now as well.
So Morgan, Rebecca, it looks like I'm covering both big stories today, the protest and the weather. It started coming down really hard here, probably about 10, maybe 15 minutes ago. It slowed down a little bit, and then the rain just started coming, pouring really, really hard again. But it's not stopping people from protesting today at the No Kings rally in downtown Dallas. If you just look around me, you can see there are thousands of people here, and they're all holding signs. It's very visual out here. They're all fighting for different things that they believe in against the Trump administration. A lot of people here are talking about different gender rights, immigration rights. We heard a lot of people talking about ICE. We heard a lot of people talking about the military. There are a lot of veterans here as well that I spoke with too. You could see that this rain, like I mentioned, not stopping anybody from protesting. Around 1:30, so maybe in about half an hour or so, they're going to start marching around downtown Dallas. This protest goes until 3 o'clock this afternoon, and it doesn't look like anyone's going anywhere. So we're going to be here to cover it until 3 o'clock this afternoon. We'll be on that march, and people want their voices to be heard out here. The weather looks like it's starting to lighten up a little bit. People have been really nice. It's been a peaceful protest. I see folks handing out waters. Somebody lent us their umbrella because we were just absolutely getting soaked as well. I do see Dallas police out here, but they're not in any riot gear. And at this point, the protest has been very, very peaceful. So let's send it back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Tiffany. One of the things that I noticed about that crowd and what I noticed the last time in June is that these are people that typically do not come out and march. You know, when I've covered a lot of protests and rallies over the years in Dallas, you kind of see the same groups. This is not that. These are regular people that are coming out to have their voices heard, Morgan.
And you said in June when you saw those demonstrations, it was really hot outside. Folks were still out there. We're seeing rain. Folks are still out there. And it's a great time to bring in Jesse Hawila, who is joining us here. Jesse, we've seen our crews in both Fort Worth and Dallas wet.
Yeah, so if you look now, Fort Worth and really most of Tarrant County is kind of in this lull. Denton County, the same thing. You see this void of rain right here between the two counties. But then you have a band of heavy rain and frequent lightning and maybe some wind gust of 30 miles an hour. These are not severe, but we do see some heavy rain rolling through downtown Dallas right now from Garland, then up to Wiley. You can see in eastern Collin County, a lot of lightning popping up there in western Hunt County, and more thunderstorms are coming into the Metroplex. This band is unlikely to be anything more than just some rain and thunder, so we don't have to worry about severe weather with that. I do think there will be at least a risk for a couple of strong or severe thunderstorms on this leading edge as it moves east of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So if you're watching from Hunt County or Kaufman County, even to Van Zant, Delta, those counties there, Lamar, I think you're going to have at least a chance for some gusty winds or some small hail. The risk for the Dallas-Fort Worth area was already really low, and at this point, once this, and in fact, there's our first severe, speak of the devil, our first severe thunderstorm warning issued right there for Hunt County, parts of Fannin and Lamar County. So we were talking about this area. You see it blinking right there. We'll show you that. They're for damaging wind gust, maybe 50 to 60 miles per hour. So this is east of the Metroplex. And what I was trying to say was this was the initial line, that beginning or that front end that I was talking about yesterday on the news, where that's my area of focus for a risk for strong to severe thunderstorms. The stuff behind this, unlikely to be anything more than what we've seen all morning long, which is just some rain and an occasional rumble of thunder. So as that moves off to the east, there'll be that risk for some stronger severe thunderstorms for Sulphur Springs, Paris, Clarksville, even again, Kaufman County down to Corsicana and Canton, this area here, maybe some small hail or some gusty winds. So as we look at timecast for the rest of this afternoon going through tonight, this is about it. This is fast moving. The Metroplex is in the clear from rain altogether by about 4 p.m. Most of the rain and thunderstorm activity in East Texas by 5, and then overnight is quiet before the cold front comes in. That cold front gets here late tonight. It'll bring a nice shift in the temperatures as we get into tomorrow. So today, well, you know, today's not been so bad either, guys. We've had cloudy skies, we've had rain. That's kept temperatures down. Tomorrow we get sunshine with fairly comfortable temperatures. So again, rain still for the next few hours.
We'll take fairly comfortable. Looking forward to fairly comfortable. Jesse, thank you.
And it looks like people paid attention to our forecast because everybody looked like they had umbrellas and ponchos out there in the Dallas protest.
One person we did not see have an umbrella and poncho. We're going to check back in with Luke. Luke is live in Fort Worth for us. Luke, I know the last time we checked in with you, the rain was starting to go away and that the march was starting to end. It looks like it's ended. There seems to be a big crowd behind you.
Hey guys, yeah, I'll tell you, we had a real downpour here half hour, 45 minutes ago, but it hasn't really put a damper on the mood here. And when we watch this crowd marching down Lamar Street back to the park, you could really get a sense of just how huge this crowd is. I mean, several thousand, maybe 10,000 people. They're all here now at Burke Burnett Park once again. It's sort of a rally atmosphere. They have a stage set up and you can hear the speakers here, you know, just really working up the crowd. We've talked about just how diverse these crowds are and the messages that we see on their signs, some of them humorous, some of them really stark in their messaging. A lot of them say no kings. A lot of them also have very patriotic messaging with American flags as well. I might just speak with some folks. Here are some folks right here. I'm Luke Clary, WFA. We're live on the air right now. What brings you here? What is your message?
Oh, we just want everybody to be aware. It's wonderful to see all these people out. We got to do something to change things.
And what does it mean to you to be surrounded by so many people who are like-minded?
It's very reassuring. I've been very jaded lately. This is making me feel really good.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. So that's a common sentiment here, people saying that they feel like there's some power in the numbers that they're seeing here. You know, a lot of the folks feeling really powerless over the last several months, whether it comes to immigration policy or reproductive rights, a long litany of issues and sharp criticisms for the Trump administration's handling of policy. And so, once again, big crowd here. They don't seem to be dismayed whatsoever by the, sheets of rain coming down. Lots of umbrellas here earlier this afternoon. But again, those umbrellas seem to be coming down. The signs are all still up. And this rally continues now into the afternoon. You can see just, again, if we just want to just take one more look out there, massive crowds here at Burke Burnett Park in downtown Fort Worth. I'll go ahead and throw it back to you in the studio.
All right, Luke, thank you. Luke looking a lot drier than he did.
And very similar to what I noticed in that interview is that the last time when I was out there in June, there were people that had never protested before, and many of them were a little older, people that typically wouldn't come out, and they were out there because they felt like they wanted more health care, like they were concerned about health care, Medicaid, and some of those issues that they feel that they are not being heard by this administration.
And the diversity of people, the diversity of issues, but one thing that really stood out that we've seen throughout the day, we've seen so many American flags waving, and one of the things Luke said and observed was that he saw a lot of patriotic messages. And that's significant because some of the criticism that came ahead of these rallies, we had multiple federal officials saying that the folks who were coming out were sending the message that they hate America.
Well, and the organizers have said, bring out your American flags, that there is nothing more patriotic than exercising your First Amendment right to free speech, to come out and speak and have a voice. And that is what they have been telling everybody that's coming out there. Bring your patriotism, bring your flags, and let's keep it peaceful and have your voice heard. And they believe that there are power in numbers.
Definitely, and just kind of reiterating and seeing all those flags and seeing that message of this is really about wanting democracy and wanting to see it maybe look a bit different, but still coming from a love of their country.
And they also have been protesting Governor Abbott. When I noticed that back in June, and I'm noticing some of the anti-Governor Abbott signs out there as well. They are not happy with, in some cases, how Texas is going as well.
So we know that we have so many demonstrations across not just North Texas, but our state as a whole. And this is actually also happening across the country. This is a live look now at Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. We've had this shot at multiple times throughout the morning, lots of people there. And those crowds have stayed strong throughout the morning. And again, multiple cities across the country. I believe we have another shot for you to see. So looking at D.C. right now, and I believe, do we have Dallas that's coming up next? Or maybe not, I don't know. Yeah. We've got them across the country, but go ahead.
Yeah, and I think now we're gonna go, like as we were talking about, in Plano, there were more than 3,000 people show up, and we had Natalie Haddad out there, and here's what she has to say about that.
We are in the heart of a North Texas region that is predominantly red. It is Collin County. Right now we are in Plano, where over 3,000 people came to a No Kings protest. And even though it rained, that did not deter protesters from leaving. Behind us, handmade signs held by people still here. The visuals have been strong all morning long. Families pushing strollers, college students with handmade signs, older adults waving flags and chanting. Here in Plano, again, we've seen more than 3,000 people. In Frisco, we saw over 1,500 people protesting. Now the message here, the core message is all comes down to one thing. It is no kings, no crowns, no thrones. This is a refusal of what the organizers describe as authoritarian overreach by the Trump administration. The movement frames this moment as a stand for democracy, something these protesters do not feel we are getting right now. That has been the overarching message today, is that these protesters want people to get out and vote and try to receive a fair and free democracy, something they do not feel they are receiving right now under this Trump administration. Now, we have spoken to all party affiliations today, Democrats, Republicans, Independents. We have talked to Jewish people, Arabs. We have talked to veterans, the son and daughters of veterans. We have talked to church groups, pastors, people affiliated with non-organizations, and all of them, again, just want people to get out and vote for a free and fair democracy, something they do not feel like they are receiving in this day.
We don't need any fascism fascism. We just need love and peace, and we need our government to get back to work. It is not the Democrats' fault. The Republicans can go in there and they can start negotiating and just work with each side.
While we did see a couple of counter-protesters wearing Trump hats, we did not see any organized counter-protesters here in Collin County. It is our understanding that they did not receive permits in time to be here at the same time as the No Kings protests. In Collin County, I'm Natalie Haddad.
And that's the same in Dallas. They have not seen any counter-protesters, and I don't believe that they actually asked for a permit as well in Dallas. They're not expecting any large anti-King rally protesters out there.
And wanting to bring up something that we were talking about earlier, you know, even when we were looking back at June, people not being deterred by how hot it was. We know that we are in a first alert weather day here. And I want to show you what the scene is in Dallas. You know, those crowds are out there strong. You just see that rain just pouring down on speakers who are out there. But this crowd, Rebecca, I don't know if it looks different to you, does not look any smaller than it did when it was not raining.
No, and when we were talking to some of the people out there, some of the officers that I know, they said that the crowds have remained strong and they're still planning to march after this.
And focusing on our weather, we've got Jesse Hawila here in studio. And Jesse, we know that this is something that's impacting our area throughout the afternoon.
Yeah, you know, a lot of folks out and about, even at the State Fair of Texas today. We have the last weekend for the State Fair, and we're seeing a lot of heavy rain rolling through downtown Dallas there. And look here, we have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect for Delta, Fannin, Hunt, and Lamar counties. This is until 2 o'clock. It's the marginally severe risk that we've been talking about, which is when we say marginally severe, what we mean is up to quarter-size hail. Quarter is the beginning of when a thunderstorm becomes severe, and up to 60-mile-per-hour winds. That's the beginning, that's the threshold, the beginning of where a thunderstorm could produce maybe some damage. But right now we have that severe thunderstorm warning. It includes Greenville, Commerce. It includes parts of Lamar County. And if you look at the timing of this thunderstorm moving to the northeast, 25 to 30, it'll be in Pecan Gap at 144, Howland at 218, Cooper 210, Glory 235, Paris 238. At the very least, you're going to see some heavy rain, not necessarily severe weather. We go back into Dallas. You can see all the heavy rain. The band of a downpour with some thunder and lightning is just about east of downtown. It's almost there. So, you know, we saw that live shot a moment ago of heavy rain falling. If you look here, see kind of on the back end there. So over the next 15 minutes or so, the rain will gradually come to an end. You may even see a peak of sunshine or two. In fact, I can see our Fort Worth tower cam just over here, and I see how the sun's starting to peek out in spots. And that's kind of been the theme today, is we get these bands of rain, a little bit of sunshine, another band of rain. This here on the backside of that first line, this will not be severe. Okay, it's that initial line that's moving through Dallas and Hunt counties right now and Kaufman counties eventually. That could pack the punch of some gusty winds or some small hail. This is just rain and lightning. That's all. And that will be coming through the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's moving in pretty fast. I mean, these thunderstorms are moving 40 plus miles per hour. At least this band here. So as it moves into Tarrant County, some heavy rain. We take a look at the severe thunderstorm warned area again. That is not for Collin County. It's east of Collin County. These thunderstorms here struggling a little bit more of a strong thunderstorm northeast of Garland. But a wide view shows you we actually don't have that much longer to go for the rain to completely move out. Thunderstorms blossoming in East Texas, those could be severe for sure. Those are quickly moving toward the Arklatex. Into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we have this band here, occasional gusts, some small hail. That's moving to the east, and then behind it, that band, we'll call it the third band, if you will, in line, that'll just have some rain, a brief downpour, maybe a little bit of a wind gust. That will be out of here, and behind that, the skies are clearing very fast. So if we look at Timecast, good job of timing this out. This is 2 p.m. See the more intense thunderstorms northeast of the Metroplex. By 3 o'clock, we're already looking at thunderstorms, the back end of the thunderstorms in Kaufman and Rockwall counties, down through Johnson and Ellis. By 4, the rain is east of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. By 5, all of the rain moves into East Texas. We're dry for the rest of the night, and a cold front is on the way. We're actually going to have high temperatures finally below normal tomorrow afternoon. So that'll be a nice change. And we actually needed this rain, guys. This is really beneficial stuff. We have gone over 3 weeks without measurable rain at DFW, and we finally broke that today. So that's good news.
All right, we received that. I'm excited for below normal temperatures. All right, Jesse, thank you so much. We're going to take a break, but before we do want to show you some of the scenes from across the country that we're seeing as these No Kings rallies continue nationwide. So let's take a look at some of those cities that we've got. And we're starting again here, Rebecca, with Washington, D.C.
And yes, you know, and these rallies are basically to protest the rhetoric coming out of the White House, and also they label these as pro-democratic, pro-democracy rallies and movement that we're seeing here across the country.
Yeah, that crowd in D.C. has stayed strong there. I believe we've got some other cities to show. Do we? Maybe? Well,
And they're having these all in all 50 states, all across the country. I think there's something like 2,500.
More than 2,500.
2,500 rallies across the state. And now we're in Boston. Wow, that looks like it says no kings, yes, on 50?
Yeah, very organized.
Wow, very organized.
And we've seen an American flag being brought out there as well. And you know, one thing that's important to know, we've got these sites of big cities, but I listened in on a call with organizers earlier this week leading up to these rallies, and one thing that they noted was, yes, we're seeing big demonstrations in large cities like these, but they were naming demonstrations that were happening in cities of like 2,000, 3,000 people.
And we saw that the last time as well. And Boston last time had one of the largest rallies. They had over 1 million people. They combined the No Kings rally with Boston Pride as well for LGBTQ rights. And what you're seeing is just a huge showing here in Boston.
So we know that they're happening in our very, very large cities. Here's a look at Chicago. We haven't checked in on them in a while. Look at that. Just people packed out there. See a big stage out there as well. That's what that looks like. You know, this is one of the cities that has really we've been hearing so much about when we talk about the president's decision to deploy potentially National Guard troops to certain cities. This is the city that's really pushed back on that.
Absolutely.
And this is one of the issues that has brought a lot of people out today.
Yeah, it's the epicenter of what is happening with immigration. You have National Guard out there. You have a very aggressive ICE enforcement out there in Chicago. You have Governor Pritzker and the mayor of Chicago pushing back against the Trump administration, saying they don't need this type of military enforcement from the federal government. And what you're seeing is a lot of people from Chicago showing up. They've also been at some of the protests in front of some of the ICE facilities, and we've seen some very violent clashes between protesters and some of the federal troops. The goal today, though, is to try to keep all of these protests peaceful and not to go into the, not to feed into the idea that these protests are being led by anyone that is violent.
And we've seen that play out in our communities, of course. We've heard reports on the ground that these protests have remained peaceful and in a lot of cases joyful, lots of cheering, and very patriotic as well. So that's a look at what's been happening across the country. We are, of course, going to check back in with you at 1:30. And again, 1:30 is when the Dallas March is slated to start. So we will bring you live coverage of that. And of course, keep an eye on our forecast for you. We'll be right back. We are following No Kings rallies across the country and here in North Texas. And we are also in a first alert weather day, taking a live look at the North Texas skies. Thank you so much for being with us on WFAA Plus. I'm Morgan Young.
And I'm Rebecca Lopez.
As I told you, we've been following No Kings rallies. These are rallies of people across the country who are protesting the actions from the Trump administration. And we have seen demonstrations with really large showings across our area this morning.
And in all 50 states, you're seeing big protests, but also smaller protests in small cities all across the nation, not just the huge organized ones that you're seeing in the major cities like Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, Houston, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, etc.
So we've seen diverse issues discussed, diverse groups of people, and we do want to show you what this is looking like here in North Texas. Our Luke Clary has been covering our demonstrations in Fort Worth. Luke, what are you seeing now?
Well, I'll tell you, Morgan, that the crowd now is dwindling a bit here in downtown Fort Worth. There were thousands of people earlier. The rain is still coming down a bit. And so far as we know, there really haven't been any security issues. But there is something that we're just kind of keeping an eye on here. If you want to just take a closer look there, we do see someone who appears to be a counter-protester waving a Trump flag. They've been kind of walking back and forth on the periphery here on the sidewalk. There are a handful of security volunteers or organizers in those orange vests who've just kind of been surrounding this individual, sort of hovering around, perhaps trying to make sure that no fights break out. You can maybe just make out that it looks like folks are exchanging words there. So again, as we have heard from the organizers here so far, nothing so much to worry about in terms of security. This event seems to have gone off pretty much without a hitch. There is a large police presence here, officers mounted on bicycles and in cruisers. They had those barricades up to allow the march to safely proceed up and down the streets of Fort Worth. And then if we just want to turn back toward the crowd, you could see, just to kind of give you a visual here, this entire park was filled to the brim at the peak of this crowd. And as you can see, as the rain is coming down and as the afternoon is sort of wearing on, we are seeing people stream toward the exits. We still hear very passionate speakers up there. I'm not sure if you can make it out, but at the very end of the park, there is a stage up there. People have been taking turns at the microphone, and at times, with a very hard edge, passions running very high here. You could see some of the signs perhaps as well with those very stark political messages. So again, this is just one of many of these No Kings protests that are playing out across North Texas and across the country. But as the afternoon wears on and as the rain comes and goes, we are again starting to see this crowd here in Fort Worth disperse.
Well,
Back to you.
Luke, before we let you go, I do have a question for you, if that's all right. I know you started your day in Arlington. You're seeing, the Fort Worth now. It's been a long day for you. The organizers of this said that they wanted this to be peaceful. Some used the word joyful and patriotic. And so just kind of reflecting on the day you've had, how would you describe the energy throughout the different events and different folks that you were able to talk to?
Sure, getting started this morning, we were in downtown Arlington. I described it as kind of a gauntlet. You had people on both sides of the street carrying signs, and the mood there really was joyful. I think that's a good word for it. People were smiling and chatting with one another, and as cars came by, you could hear them honking in support of that message. It really had the vibe of, I don't know, like a street dance or street party, or a concert or some kind of a sporting event. It wasn't like really hardcore political messaging, at least in Arlington. Now, when we got here in Fort Worth and as the clouds started to kind of roll in and you could hear the messaging from the stage, a lot more, I would say a bit more dire, a little harder edge. And talking to people, there are folks out here that really do feel as though their rights are at stake. And so you can probably hear the honking and the cheering in the background here as well. So there is a mix of that. There's that joyful and party-like atmosphere. There are definitely a lot of people out here waving the American flag. So they're really kind of sharing that patriotic message, that it is patriotic to protest and to dissent and to exercise your First Amendment right. So we're really seeing a wide variety of people across generations, a very diverse crowd, and again, I would say even a range of emotions from, in some cases, fear and anger to joy, and just really finding solidarity and a power in this togetherness here at this No Kings protest in Fort Worth.
Luke Clary has been covering these demonstrations across Tarrant County for us this morning. Luke, thank you so much for your work, and in the rain. So grateful for him. Rebecca, that was the different messaging and the different tone. That was something you've talked about today. It's something you talked about in June, and you were just speaking to the different communities. We have large cities here that we're covering, but there are small communities across the country that are doing this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is what is different about the protests that I have typically covered in this area. Typically, you do have the same organizers, same type of groups that are out there protesting. Typically, it's involving some sort of police brutality or excessive force by police officers. Typically, you see a lot of those types of protests. And we have had also large immigration protests here in the past. There was one maybe about 15, 20 years ago that brought out 500,000 people in downtown Dallas. But what you are seeing here is just people that have never protested before. This crowd crowd, the makeup of the crowd, the makeup of the people, anywhere from little kids to elderly people with a variety of issues. You see people from Black Lives Matter, people that are wanting, you know, to go against President Trump's ICE raids, and just some of the issues that people feel very passionate about. It's just a wide range of issues, from the economy to LGBTQ, just a large group of people from all walks of life that you are seeing at these protests that you typically would never see out at rallies and protests like these.
And to echo what Luke said, you know, with different energies, different messages, and we're seeing different things. And I do want to know just one more thing, 'cause I think we saw one before. We're seeing a lot of signs, and we're doing our best to make sure that we are not showing any explicit language or sentiments. I know a couple have popped up, so we do want to again apologize. We tried to do this a little earlier. Just if you do see any language on there, we're trying to avoid it, but it's live TV. We're doing our best. Let's get to Tiffany Liu, who is in Dallas, where the march portion of this demonstration is supposed to start any minute now. Tiffany, how are things going out there?
You know, Morgan, it's been a roller coaster here at the Dallas protest. It was raining super hard just about 15 minutes ago, and now the rain has lifted and people are still here right now. There are folks speaking at this time, but my understanding is that after they speak, people are going to start marching around downtown Dallas. Lauren's sort of panning around here, just showing you the thousands of people that are out here with different signs. Folks, I was watching people actually draw their signs in the parking lot too before the protest when we arrived earlier today. So many people are here for different reasons. Actually, earlier I heard them talking about the rainbow sidewalks in Oak Lawn and asking and demanding for folks to leave that alone, that it's funded by private donors, and that's one of the issues people are fighting for is LGBTQ rights, immigration rights. People have also talked about as well, concerns with ICE. But if you just look here in the crowds behind me, you can see there are so many different people. Let's walk a little bit here and just show you. We're going to try to walk through this crowd and zigzag through, but there are just so many different people. The demographics of this crowd are also a very wide range as well. Here, I'll follow you. I'm going to watch your back over here while you walk. We've seen veterans here. We've seen people from you know, that are passionate about Black Lives Matter. We've seen people who are passionate about military rights as well. All these different signs. People are fighting for different things, and all of it is against what they believe the Trump administration is doing. So again, this Dallas rally here that we're at, the march is going to start here shortly after the speakers talk here. They said 1:30. We're now at 1:40, so the march should be starting soon. We're going to continue to cover this rally, but for now, let's send it back to you in the studio.
Becca here. I'm just going to ask you a quick question. Have you seen any people signing people up to vote? Because I have heard, and I saw at the last rally that they had people signing people up to vote. Are you seeing a voter drive out there?
Yeah, you know, I think there is. Lauren, can you pan over to that tent on right over there? There's a tent over there, and I also see folks on the sidewalk with clipboards as well. I'm not exactly sure what they're doing at the tent, but it possibly could be that. But I did see people on the sidewalk with clipboards. At these events, these rallies like this, we do frequently see people trying to register folks to vote as well. We're getting a little closer just so we could take a look at what that is for you here. It is it's actually a union, it looks like, of the United Steelworkers. They're here. But yeah, it looks like the Ellis County Democrats are here as well. So I will find that out and I will let you know. But also, just so you guys know, there has been police presence around here. It's sort of at the perimeter of the event. No one's dressed in riot gear or anything overall for the last hour and a half, 45 minutes. This has been a very peaceful protest. And as the march begins, we hope it continues to be that way. Rebecca, Morgan,
Thank you, Tiffany. Yeah, one of the things that they do at these protests with the Dallas Police Department and the City of Dallas is they make you get a permit to be out there. And of course, people are going to show up. But then in order to be able to march, because they have to shut down the streets and they have to have police and they have to have sharpshooters, they have to have people, because we do know that there was obviously officers that were killed as they were protecting protesters' right to free speech a few years back. And so the Dallas Dallas Police Department takes these very seriously. So if you are going to march through the streets, you do have to have a permit, and they do block off streets, and they make sure that they're keeping everyone safe. It's an officer safety issue, and it's also an issue for safety of the protesters and the people that are out there marching.
And that's such great context, and also seems like what we've seen is for the demonstrations that we have out there, not really a big presence, not really a presence at all in counter protests. I think we've had our crusade, maybe a sprinkle of people have shown up with Trump flags and different things to support the president, but no big movement to basically counter what we're seeing today.
Yeah, and when I've seen that happen, sometimes that can get very tense, and I've seen Dallas police have to go in and get those people out so that no one gets hurt.
All right, the other big story that we have today in North Texas is our weather. We've seen some of our crews have been rained on, then not rained on, Jesse, and then rained on again. So what's going on out there?
It has been really kind of on and off. We have these bands that are coming through, and the final band is now moving into Tarrant and Denton County. So you're getting some rain in Denton County, you're getting some rain in Tarrant County. That's the final band. So but behind this, it's rapid clearing. The sun is going to be popping out before the day is over. But our strongest thunderstorms are now east of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So at this point, I'd say the Metroplex is out of the risk of severe weather for the rest of the day. The chance for maybe a couple of gusty thunderstorms with some small hail, that still exists between Greenville down to Terrell and Kaufman for about the next hour or so. This rain that's moving into Tarrant, it's just rain. In fact, there's barely any lightning. It's all kind of falling apart here as it moves into a little bit more stable air. But from Keller to Saginaw, some rain. Nice little downpour near Lake Louisville, moving into Denton. Little Elm, down to Louisville and Flower Mound, a little bit of rain there. Collin County, you're in one of those lulls. Like Morgan was saying, it's like on, off, on, off. Well, you're now in the off phase in McKinney and Allen and Plano and Princeton. But if you look to the east, some heavy rain falling near Josephine, Royce City, and Greenville up to Wolf City. There in Hunt County, some heavy rain. In Rockwall County, same thing. Heath, some heavy rain, but these are not severe thunderstorms. We really needed some rain, and we're finally getting it, which is great. You see here how the intensity's kind of come down a little bit. So again, if you live in Rockwall County, if you live in Kaufman County at this point, your risk for severe weather is very close to zero. If you live in the Metroplex at this point, you're done with the risk for severe weather. We have these little thunderstorms falling apart here in parts of Hood County and Johnson counties, so just some heavy rain. So we've had these bands. So you had this initial little round that's now in East Texas with some scattered rain. The risk for severe weather for the rest of the afternoon and evening will be east of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So I will still watch radar for our folks in Paris, Sulphur Springs, Canton, down to Athens. Okay, that's the area. There could be a couple, gusty storms with some small hail. Your window of opportunity shuts by about 4 o'clock. The rain comes to an end completely for the Dallas-Fort Worth area by 4 o'clock. So there's 4. So I say that risk of severe weather still clinging on at 4 for Canton, Sulphur Springs, Paris, and Athens. There it is at 4. And then it's done by 5, okay? So all the rain is in East Texas by the time we get to 5 o'clock. So if you have plans for the rest of today, we were saying that window of opportunity for rain today was between noon and 4. That's still the case. Any plans after 4 o'clock today look totally fine. In fact, because we've had the clouds and the rain around all day today, temperatures are going to be so nice tonight. We are finally expected to fall into the 50s overnight. It's the first time this entire fall we're going to have low temperatures in the 50s tomorrow morning. And guys, that's a record. It has never taken this long on record for DFW to fall into the 50s. We'll do it tomorrow morning. I can't wait to hear about the complaints of how cool it is. It's my favorite thing.
They won't come from here. That's what I'll tell you. I'll be in my sweater joyful. Thank you, Jesse. All right, before we take a break, we are preparing for the rally in Dallas to start marching, but we know that there are various places where they've already started. So we want to take a look at what some of these No Kings demonstrations are looking like in other parts of the country.
Well, look, this is Washington, D.C., and we know that D.C. is the heart of democracy. There have been many, many historical marches in Washington, D.C., the civil rights era, where you had large marches led by Dr. King, and you are seeing a very large crowd there in Washington, D.C.
And I think one thing that's interesting about the DC shot that we've had is that it really hasn't wavered. We've had it since this morning, and that crowd has really stayed strong this entire time. And you mentioned that when we saw the first round of No Kings protests, just because of the date back in June, there wasn't actually an event in Washington, D.C.
Right, that was the day that it was President Trump's birthday, and he was having a military parade, and there was, so the thought was that they were not going to interfere with that, and so they did not organize a rally in D.C. on the president's birthday and on the day of the military parade there.
And I believe we may also have a shot of Chicago. Yes, we're taking a live look at the demonstration in Chicago. You can see folks there have just started to march. And Rebecca, we were saying earlier that Chicago is a key city in the conversations that we're having and the focal point of a lot of issues that people are protesting today.
Well, that is the city where you saw President Trump send in the National Guard. You also have had very aggressive ICE raids. And you remember way before this, Governor Abbott actually sent busloads of immigrants to Chicago. And so the people in Chicago are like, well, you sent immigrants here and now you have this heavy immigration enforcement. So they feel like there's some sort of mixed messaging here by the Republican Party, and they are very angry about some of the protest and arrest of American citizens, not just immigrants, in some of these ICE raids that they have seen in Chicago. And we've seen videos, not from the media, but from people that have been out there protesting and citizens that have been publishing them on social media. And we're seeing people now in large numbers in Chicago basically protesting President Trump's heavy-handedness, what they believe, when it comes to immigration.
And you know, we've been showing you what this looks like in our area, of course, and also some of the large cities across our country. But one of the things we were talking about earlier, organizers pointed out there are more than 2,500 of these demonstrations across the country, and a lot of them are happening in really small, even more rural communities with just a few thousand people in the population. So one really big unified movement that we're seeing across our country and here in our communities. And I believe we've got video. This is Arlington, Rebecca, earlier today. Luke was out there in Tarrant County.
Yes, and they had people also obviously we also saw him in Fort Worth. It looks like a pretty large crowd there in Arlington today.
And you know, he was talking even, Arlington and Fort Worth, obviously both in Tarrant County, next to each other, but just the difference in what he was seeing and hearing and feeling in Arlington versus what he saw and heard in Fort Worth. He said he felt that, I think he likened it almost to kind of like a block party being in Arlington, and he said, you know, the message kind of got a bit sharper when he got to Fort Worth, but described the scene that we're looking at here as joyful. All right, we're pivoting now to Dallas. We told you the portion of the Dallas demonstration that's going to turn to a march is actually preparing to start right now. We've been looking in at different speakers who have been coming. They've been speaking through the rain, people with their signs. And so the actual portion of the march is going to begin. And Rebecca, I know you have such a good insight and context to these events, especially when the actual march portion starts.
Yeah, as I was saying, Morgan, typically what you have is you need a permit in order to be able to march in Dallas, because you have to shut down streets, you have to have police, and you will see officers in their squad cars now. You'll definitely see Dallas police now come out because they have to shut down some of the roads, and so they'll be like whipping around because it is very, you know, it's dangerous if you do not, you know, block off those roadways, and so you have to have a permit. If you don't have a permit, that's when DPD and the city takes it very seriously, and they will tell you you have to stay on the sidewalks, you can't be in the middle of the street. Then they'll start arresting people, but that's not going to be the case here because these organizers did get a permit to march, and so it is actually a path that has already been predetermined by DPD and with cooperation from the organizers to make sure that they know where they're going so they can keep everyone safe.